In August 2001, 1 month before the September 11th attacks, William Ayers appeared in a photograph standing defiantly on the American flag. The picture was taken for an article in Chicago Magazine called No Regrets. Ayers was promoting his book, Fugitive Days, which documents his 11 years as the leader of a domestic terrorist group called the Weathermen. On September 11th, coincidentally the very morning of the terrorist attacks, the New York Times printed an interview with Ayers in which he infamously said, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." In his book, Ayers also wrote, "There's something about a good bomb. Big buildings and wide streets, cement and steel were no longer permanent. A torch, a bomb, a strong enough wind, and they too would come undone." Apparently the 9/11 terrorists would agree. Ayers and his Weathermen were responsible for 30 attacks aimed at dismantling the defense and security of the United States. They were protesting the Vietnam War, to be sure, but they were also urging white student radicals to provoke a race war, to shed their white skin privilege, and to spread the wealth of the U.S. to the world's poor. Kill all the rich people, Ayers urged his followers. Break up their cars and apartments. Bring the revolution home. Kill your parents. The group bombed the U.S. Capitol building, the Pentagon, New York City Police Headquarters, and the National Guard's offices in Washington, D.C. In 1970, nail bombs they were planning to detonate at a dance for new recruits and their dates at Fort Dix Army Base accidentally triggered and killed 3 Weathermen members. With typical liberal ineptitude, they actually killed more of their own members than U.S. civilians. However, being inept is not much of a defense. Ayers himself admitted that the bomb could have done serious damage, quote, tearing through windows and walls, and yes, people too. Incredibly, when Ayers was asked if he would consider using bombs against the U.S. in the future, he responded that he, quote, couldn't imagine entirely dismissing the idea. So while Ayers' book was being written and published, and while these interviews and photos were being broadcast, and while all of this information was being disseminated, Barack Obama was serving on a board with this former terrorist. The two men were friendly since at least 1995. Bill Ayers has never expressed regrets for his past actions, and yet Obama claims that he, quote, assumed he, Ayers, had been rehabilitated. This is hard to believe. Harder still when you've heard all the facts. Obama has written that he is a pure product of the 60s. He gently mocks his mother's unreconstructed liberalism, saying that the anger, the oppositional spirit, just wasn't in her. He writes that in his teens he investigated and became fascinated with that decade's societal upheaval. He began to model himself in style and attitude after radicals like Huey Newton and the rioters at the '68 Democratic Convention. This, coincidentally, was the same period that the Weathermen were planting bombs in U.S. cities. In 1969, the Weathermen issued their declaration of war against the United States of America-KKK-A. Where have we heard that expression before? Oh yeah, Obama's neo-Marxist pastor and longtime spiritual advisor, Jeremiah Wright. When at Occidental College, Obama writes that he specifically sought out the more politically active blacks and the Marxist professors. The Weathermen were avowed Marxists. In fact, Bill Ayers still describes himself as a communist with a small c. Are you sensing a pattern here? In the summer of 1989, after a year at law school, Obama went to work at the prestigious Chicago law firm Sidley & Austin. As a virtual unknown, how did he land a summer job with such a big law firm? Well, Sidley Austin was a longtime counsel to Commonwealth Edison. And who was the former chairman and CEO of ComEd? Tom Ayers, father of Bill Ayers. The senior partner at Sidley also sat on a board of trustees with Tom Ayers. Interestingly, Bernadine Dorn also worked at Sidley & Austin. Who's Bernadine Dorn? She's the charming wife of Bill Ayers. She's also a former member of the Weathermen and the FBI's most wanted list. She once famously praised the Manson family for murdering Sharon Tate and others, shouting, "Dig it, first they killed those pigs, then they ate dinner in the same room with them. They even shoved a fork into a victim's stomach. Wild." Like her husband, she too is unrepentant and said she still sees herself as a radical, and recently compared living in America to, quote, living in the belly of the beast. Bernadine Dorn currently teaches law at Northwestern University, although she has not been admitted to any state bar. According to her former boss at Sidley, she didn't get a law license because she refuses to say she's sorry. Now, the Obama narrative has him meeting Bill Ayers in 1995, but this is highly unlikely. In late 1994, William Ayers created the Chicago Annenberg Challenge, a foundation that would funnel millions of dollars into reform efforts at Chicago schools. He appointed Barack Obama as the first chairman. It's clear he already knew and trusted Obama enough to put him in charge of distributing millions of dollars of other people's money. Bill Ayers put Obama in a position to hand out tons of money to Chicagoans who would be very grateful if Obama ever ran for public office, which he did later that year in an event held at the home of Ayers and Dorn. Obama and Ayers served on the Chicago Annenberg Challenge from 1995 to 2001. They also served together on the Woods Foundation from 1999 to 2002 when Obama left. And yet, when asked about their relationship, Obama simply says, "This is a guy who lives in my neighborhood who's a professor of English in Chicago." This is also misleading, as Obama surely knows that Ayers is a professor of education. It would be better if this distortion were true, however. Then Ayers' venomous anti-American teaching will be limited to a few liberal arts students. But through his indoctrination of future K-12 teachers, Ayers has been able to influence what happens in hundreds, if not thousands, of classrooms across the nation. Instead of planting bombs in public buildings, Ayers is now planting bombs in the minds of public school students. Even Obama campaign manager and speechwriter David Axelrod has tried to obfuscate the truth, saying, "Bill Ayers lives in his, Obama's, neighborhood. Their kids attend the same school. They're certainly friendly. They know each other, as anyone whose kids go to school together." Now, Obama's daughters are elementary school age. Ayers has grown children. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not in the habit of seeking out friendships with people whose kids went to the same school as mine 20 years earlier. Now, it's possible that Barack Obama just used these questionable connections to further his own political career, in which case he's just another typical politician. On the other hand, maybe he truly subscribes to the radical ideology professed by these associates, in which case he's a dangerous politician. And while you ponder this, here's something else to consider. Why would the University of Illinois ever appoint an unrepentant terrorist who once advised young Americans to bring the revolution home and kill their parents to the position of distinguished professor of childhood education?